Good afternoon, everyone. Thinking about heading back to a farmer's market this summer? Rule change, temperature checks, and you can't use cash, digital only. Although over half the world still shops at wet markets, and you know how they're being demonized across the planet. Squid, fish. Are you able to switch over to frogs as a protein source? If you have a pond, you might want to think about this. Over in Vietnam, these trays of food I think are not going to be out in the open as they were before, because you see the yellow basket, you just toss your sparrows in there and it pops out deep fried on a plate with veg and dipping sauce. Through the street markets, this is your seed supply and your spice supply here, and you have to take a look at the beans. Which ones can be sprouted, which ones can be cooked? Oh, all of them. And keep your dirty fingers off my turtles. That's a new rule change too. And don't touch the produce. I guess that'll leave you with the supermarket. And how willing are you to change to a new diet because of seasonal availability or a substitution protein source is right in front of you? Bank of America is predicting gold to nearly double to above $3,000 per ounce. And gold is often the most sought after investment hedge to protect wealth during times of economic uncertainty. With never-ending printing by the Fed, we're fighting an uphill inflationary battle. With this much inflation on the way, only one investment stands out: gold. Patriot Gold Group has no fee-for-life IRAs where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver. At Patriot, you work directly with an owner and avoid paying absurd broker fees. Call today or request a free investment kit. PatriotGoldGroup.com. The link's in the description box below. Looking at the new rule change here for at least Rutherford County, Tennessee. Farmers markets are going to open this summer, but there's an enormous amount of new stipulations in the way they're going to operate. I'm sure you're going to see this across the entire spectrum here. Vendors, meaning the sellers, are going to have to be temperature checked and logged in every day for contact tracing. Even though you're in the open air, there's still going to be a limited amount of customers allowed in the market at any one time. And as we see the progression into digital currency, here we are. Even at the local buying your own vegetable level, you're going to have to go cashless. Digital currency, cashless payments, the dirty green money, not accepted. And what still baffles me, even if you're in the open air, they're still going to want you to wear masks. And most importantly, don't touch the produce in any educational courses you want to learn on how to grow your own vegetables. Oops, you can only do it online. No more human contact. I can't learn from the person who's been growing for 50 years in their garden. I can only do that online. But a few images here from Asia, as most of the world still shops at these types of open and wet markets. But you know, with the original seed point in China, the wet markets have been demonized. But this is still how an enormous amount of people around our planet shop. This is over in Taipei in Taiwan, North Coast. And the exchange rate currently is 30 to 1. So 200 is about $7, let's say. Each one of these trays is $7. These are shellfish. They pop the meat out of the shell for you, and you buy it by the tray. Same thing with the squid. We're looking at about $7 for ipan, which is just one tray there, or two for $3.50, which is going to be about $11.50 for one tray, whatever you want. It comes in different sizes. You don't have to get the large squid. Everybody cooks in different styles. They need different sizes for different uses. You can get the large ones. These are what restaurants generally use when they're making their calamari. Or you can get smaller ones for home cooking, and that way you can keep a little bit of the ink in there in some of the recipes. And it literally comes in any size for any possible use that you're going to have for cooking. And then there's also different species, depending if they're deeper water or shallow water, intercoastal. And fish as well. These are mostly for deep frying. There's no way you can get fillets out of these. They're too small. But 100 is right around $3 there, and 30 cents for the green tray. And a little bit larger shoaling fish, same price. So you're looking at, what do you get comparatively to a U.S. supermarket in terms of in Asia in a wet market like this, and everything's prepackaged in the supermarkets we're used to. The prices aren't that expensive, but could you eat deep fried fish every single day after day after day? Well, the health implications of eating deep fried whatever day after day, even if it's fish, you'd have to think a different way to prepare it. And then we start looking at different types of cuttlefish here. And more open ocean squid. Ask for the price on this because they get a little more expensive, especially these cuttlefish. something of a delicacy, and you can see 400 right there, right around $13 for just a single cuttlefish. Crab legs, not a problem. Again, different species. It's all open. It's on ice. Well, the ice does melt through the day. We're pretty familiar with fish, and there's an enormous amount of different tasting, different texture fish. Everybody has their favorite, of course, more the open ocean or inland reef fish. But one of the things I'm focusing on is having protein sources in a pond close to your location. Not a lot of people think about eating frogs in the U.S., but the tilapia, well-known fish, but the frogs, how do you catch them? How do you raise them? How do you clean them? You'll have to figure out your own recipes moving forward with this. Now, don't discount seaweeds either. There's an enormous amount of different types of seaweeds that are edible. This is one thing that's so good about the wet markets. You can actually see the food, and before you could go in there with the tongs and turn it around and make sure that everything was fresh and there wasn't something hidden on the bottom. But imagine now the seller's advantage where they could disguise something and put it in the piece that may be substandard. You're not allowed to look at the food anymore. It only comes from a supermarket, and you're really limited on where we can go to actually get our foods now. And they're keeping people apart. Even the older generation who has more knowledge about growing, look, you're not even allowed to meet them anymore. So jumping down to Vietnam, of course, well known for its fresh vegetables and massive amounts of fruits, fruit shakes. It's a great place for traveling. Now, street side, again, open air. These are the kind of venues that are being demonized across the media, and for sure anything like this in the U.S. or Western countries is going to be closed down. Now, there's Asian communities within Western nations that still sell like this inside their own communities, but you know how it is, it's going to get closed down. So how is this going to shift culturally everything in terms of food buying? But I did want to point out, not only is this root spice selection large and varied here, but this is your seed source as well. So you can come in and buy quite a few of these, whatever you like, the gingers or the different types of turmeric. You got the lemongrass over there. And then you can replant it and it will grow. So, a lot of these markets are used for dual purpose. People going in there to actually buy seed stock, but try to get their seasoning, spices, whatever for dinner. And a bit further down the street, you actually come into the spice section here. You can see that cinnamon front and center, dried mushrooms. Now, with the new state of our world, that's going to probably have to be individually packed, or the vendor's going to have to get it for you wearing gloves. And you're like, no, the other piece on the left. No, the piece on the right. And they're going to get frustrated eventually. Perusing the landscape here of the onions, garlic, and different types of chilies and spices, potatoes, scallions, and everything in between, peppercorns, fresh peppercorns, green. Everything's sold by bulk. And definitely not packaged. You just put it on the scale and you buy it at that point. Kilogram, half kilogram, whatever you like. The beans, the same thing. And I did want to point out here, I've had an enormous amount of questions asked. Are these dual purpose here? And the answer is absolutely yes. Anything you see in terms of this bean can be sprouted first into microgreens. You can grow those on trays. Or you can go ahead and just cook that and you can plant it. So what I'm looking at here is microgreens, soup stock, beans, and also seed stock. So these open air markets are amazing. You can go in and get anything you want and think about the cost savings when you're buying bulk like this. Now also things that are going to change, these open air venues where you can go in at night and look at everything on streets or in restaurants that are out on trays like this. It's real simple, the concept. You choose what you want and you put it into the yellow basket. They prepare it for you behind and they bring it in the restaurant and serve it to you. Now, we saw this ad here for the stewed pigeon, and, in Vietnam, they eat sparrows and pigeons quite a bit. Not so much in the States, but they are delicious. So pop your favorite sparrow or frog, whatever it is, into the basket, and it's delivered out to your table in about 5 or 10 minutes, while you can people watch, have a beer, and it looks a little something like this. Fresh veg on top, a couple dipping sauces, and if you're still hungry, you can just go back and order more. And for me, it was my first time ever eating a sparrow buried under there. I was really astounded how good they were. As a protein source, double thumbs up. In terms of meat, not very much. You're going to have to eat a lot of those, but luckily the bones can be consumed as well. And if you put them in an air fryer, I bet you could eat everything, because we put duck in an air fryer, and duck usually you can't do much with the bone. It's you have to throw a lot of it away. But with the air fryer, we're able to get that crispiness out of the bone and still eat much more of the duck than you possibly could if you just had it coming out of the oven. So I'm sure this would be the exact same thing here. So it's going to be all about experimenting with new foods and different protein sources as we move forward. Everything's going to become much, much more seasonal than you've ever been used to. And we might revert back to our grandparents or great-grandparents when they used to eat a lot more of different animals, and then also things like this: bird eggs, fish eggs, into a hot pot or a stew, getting the protein source. And with any pond that you're thinking about, turtles, fish, and frogs. So again, wet market, you can go in and choose your favorite type of turtle here. But if you're going to be pulling these out of your own pond, you're going to have to learn how to clean turtle. Again, that's a skill set in itself. And if the wet market's not for you, you can always jump right into the supermarket. Pate, hugely popular in Vietnam. Not so much in the States, but whenever you get these banh mi sandwiches and different toasted bread, there's always some type of pate on it. Popular in France, popular in some parts of Southeast Asia. There's only a tiny, tiny little section in supermarkets in the States. So I would imagine this would grow in popularity because it's a different part of the animal or bird, and you can prepare it 1,000 different ways. And this is a perfect example of supermarkets taking control and then packaging what you would have previously bought in the wet market. Everything's becoming centralized in terms of control of the food supply. You're going to have to go through hoops and hurdles to be able to access these stores, get in there, and everything's going to be more expensive and seasonal. And you're going to have to start adjusting your diet to what will be available. Now, the big box stores, Sam's, Costco, etc., that's going to be the top echelon of the food. You're going to have to pay to get in there with the premium if you're going to want to go into supermarkets in the future. I would say after the second lockdown and then the winter and then into spring when they unlock again, there's going to be many more regulations for you to enter a supermarket. So you'll have to grow your own or trade with your neighbors outside that system. As you can see, even payments at farmers markets this year are moving digital, which steps us into an entirely new era. Cash forbidden to buy vegetables from one farmer to another. This is bizarro world where we're stepping. Anyway, thank you for watching. I talk more about this on my Patreon channel, about possibilities and ideas where the future could lead based on what's happening now and previous cycles of grand solar minimums going back 2,400 years. Patreon/adapt2030, and I'll see you next video.